Welcome to Fast and Hard with your host, Coach Matt Tyner and Will Pritchard.
Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. It's our 11th episode. My goodness, who would have thunk we made it that far? Ladies and gentlemen, we got a special treat for you tonight. We'll revisit an energy sources with Michael Melnik and cover inclusion, which is really big, man. We really subscribe to that here, Will. We try to include a lot of people we say it takes a village, and I believe in that. So, you're a part of it. You get a voice. You see how we operate. Don't you think we utilize inclusion pretty well?
Oh, definitely. From the outside looking in, especially with the games that I've gone to, what I've seen, team interactions, it's nothing but inclusion, and that's honestly how things are meant to be, really.
Well, I appreciate that. And then next, we only have one guest on tonight, and his name is Eric Franc. And Eric, when you think about Towson, Eric is synonymous with Towson. He was a student here. He's coached here. He's been an academic advisor. He's coached basketball. His resume is just loaded with Towson experience. And what a great human being he is. So we thought we would give him the floor and kind of let him connect with some of the alumni that he has had the opportunity and the pleasure to have worked with. So I hope you guys take full advantage of this and listen to Coach Franc, because he is sorely missed around here, and he is such a good one. So sit back, relax, enjoy the show tonight, and we'll get into it right now. Thank you very much.
So, Coach Tyner, since the last time that we were able to talk, 3 different teams, UNCW, Maryland, and Hofstra.
Yeah, what do you want to know, big fella? You've got that part of it right.
So, that first series, UNCW, away from home, of course, struggling a little bit on the road. 2 of those games, again, very close, 1-2-run games. Why don't you walk me through that weekend, starting with that Friday?
Love to. And you're right, we are struggling a little bit on the road. We haven't won a game on the road, with the exception of down in LSU when we beat Southern twice. So we knew that going in, but we also knew we had a fierce competitor in UNCW, and they play extremely well at home. So, you have a double-edged sword there. You're not playing extremely well on the road, and they play great at home. And I think we battled on Friday night and came up 1 run short, 8-7. But it was a good game. We were in it all the way, the whole time. We just didn't get a couple things to go our way that night. Then move on to Saturday's game, and it's things get away from us. We ran across a couple of buzzsaw arms. I mean, I saw a guy hit 100 for the first time, live and in person. So that's pretty effective, when you got a guy throwing 100. So
I'm sure that's got to be something to see.
Yeah, it was incredible. And then on Sunday we got out. We were down 4-0 before we could even shake a stick, and then we battled all the way back. And that game was closer than a 2-run loss. I mean, I felt like we were in it to win it and just could not get it done. And then, you move from there. You got 3 games, 2 of them that you were in. And you're like, gosh, what's it take to win a game here, in the CAA? And you're just reminded how tough a conference it is. So, it is extremely, extremely competitive this year.
Yeah, it is, and that's something you see reflected in the CAA standings as well. Just this conference in terms of baseball is one of the most competitive conferences, at least in my opinion, that I've seen in recent years, especially coming back from the COVID years and just everything getting back to a sort of normal. This conference is just extremely competitive, and it's the first, I want to say this would be the first, closer to normal pre-COVID season that the NCAA has had since everything started. Going off of that, playing Tuesday, April 19th at home against Maryland. 4-3 loss in the 10th, correct?
Yeah, but I'm going to take it back to what you just said, because you hit on a great point. And let's let the listeners understand this. We have not played UNCW for 2 years. So the last time we went down there was 2019. Now, everybody probably doesn't realize this. Yes, we've gotten a little bit better, but guess what they've done? They've gotten better too. They've retained all the talent they wanted to retain, and they've gone out and got even more talent. So it is not an easy road playing in the CAA right now, and we struggle a little bit. We just do, because there is a ton of talent in this particular league. We can play with anybody, but we may come up a tick short here or a tick short there, and that's what happened on Tuesday. We get Maryland here out of their comfort zone, and we take them right to the limit. We are 3 feet, Will, from beating the number one, the 21st team in the country, 4-3 in the bottom of the ninth. Burt Camper hits a ball down the left field line that somehow, at the last possible moment, tails foul. Otherwise, that game is over. And it's a back-to-back Homer Dome walk-off, which you don't see very often. But we had a homer to tie it, and a homer to win it would have just, that's the spark that this team needs. And we'll talk about the spark that we got this weekend in a little bit. But Maryland's a great club, and they can hit. But we, basically put together a brother-in-law type pitching performance that day where, okay, you got this inning. Take us as long as you can go. You go. And it just worked out well. We kept them off balance. Our pitchers did a great job of throwing strikes too. That's something we didn't do down there. I don't know if it was because the lights came on and, we're playing Maryland for the first time and everybody really wants to beat them really, really bad. And you know how things like that turn out. Not so good. So you go from 26-8 to 4-3. Both losses, of course, but the second game, I think, is a little bit more of a testimonial on how we can play.
Definitely. Holding your weight against such a large school as Maryland, that's something that is an accomplishment in and of itself. And again, to go off of the conference and not playing UNCW since 2019, to put that in perspective, spring of 2019, I was not even a Towson student yet. I was still in high school. If that puts it into the audience perspective, that is how long it's been since these teams have played together. This season is some of the more reflective, or one of the most reflective seasons you'll see of what has been going on since the pandemic. You can see what has been done, what these teams have been up to, what they've been doing, and that's going to carry over not just throughout the rest of this season, but into next season as well. And that leads right into Hofstra, another tough CAA opponent. Let's go through that weekend, starting with Friday.
Friday was kind of an up and down game the whole way, and then they pulled away from us, and we just couldn't seem to get anything really started. We couldn't go back-to-back hits at all. Again, they're in second place in our conference right now. I mean, you can't overlook that. I mean, when you're sitting back going, well, Hofstra's not, well, yeah, they are. They are pretty good. They've got 3 good, solid starting pitchers. They've got 5 arms out of the bullpen that they can run at you. O'Hanlon he's a beast. He's down 40 pounds and he's picked up 5 miles an hour, from last year alone. So we did get to face those guys last year, and, we were 4-4 against those guys. 4-4. So I bet you if we'd have played another game, we probably would have won that game as well. That's how evenly matched I saw those two teams. But they're 9-6, and we're 1-11 right now. So they've played one series more than we have. We got to turn this thing around. But you're talking about a team that's gone out there and is now in the top 160 in RPI. And to talk about UNCW, they're 54th. If they're not even in the top 3 teams in our league right now. They're tied for 3rd and 4th. So, I'm blown away by the talent level so far, and we've got a tough one this weekend. Northeastern's not a pushover, but the neat thing about our league right now, Will, is this: there is a certain amount of parity, and everybody seems to be beating up on everybody. It's the team that gets hot at the right time and can put a little run together that might be able to just walk through this thing. Charleston's playing extremely, extremely well right now. They've lost 2 games. Otherwise, they are just kicking it. Can they stay at that level? And we all know Coach Holbrook. We listened to him this year. He's got a fine program going down there with all the support in the world. So it's going to be interesting to see where they end up. We catch them here last week of the season. Will they be saving people? Will they be trying to put their pitching together? Could we sneak up on them and capture a couple games? But back to Hofstra, loser 8-4. Again, Saturday got away from us, and Sunday almost got away from us. But we were able to come back and win a big game in a really, really dramatic fashion. They opened the door with an E5 and then struck out our next guy. And my thinking behind that, Will, was if I were to have bunted Jack McLaughlin at that point in time and we were successful, that means Jack would have been thrown out at first, Jordan Payton would have been at second base, and Elijah Dickerson would have been up. Well, you and I both know, you're not the baseball man that I am, but you're probably going to sit there and go, well, let's just walk Elijah Dickerson because that run means nothing. I couldn't do that because I knew at any given point Elijah could do what he did. Elijah could have left the yard. It's just too good of a hitter, and he's hot. So I had to let Jack hit, and I had to let him hit, and thank God he came through for us. And with that, he was named the CAA Player of the Week this year, or this week. And man, oh man, what an accomplishment and what an award! Pretty big. So,
definitely. I was there on Friday too, shooting highlights of the game, and of course Elijah Dickerson, 2 home runs. I was not able to shoot the first one. We had one of our other camera guys shooting that highlight. Second one, I turn around. I go to get on the side where I can see him better. I take one step, and then I just hear the ball get hit. I don't even have time to press the record button. But sure enough, I record the celebration as he's walking back.
Awesome.
And that was one of the most entertaining and just one of the most beautiful things I've been able to record is just seeing everyone just really just get behind him like that.
It was interesting. I pulled everybody aside in the bottom of the ninth, and I said, "Look, we're going to win this game, and when we do, I want you guys to charge the field and throw the water and be happy and remember what it's like to win again." And for just a brief moment, I don't know if they believe me or not, but they all crossed over to the Tyner side, and we were able to do that. And it's a tribute to them. They do the playing. I just do the, try to push a button or two, and God love them. They needed a big win like that to ignite the fuse. And we thought we had the big win in George Washington when they came up here, and, it looked good. We played well, right? Well, this was a sloppy game that we came out on top of, and it was about, I would compare this to about a 10-round heavyweight fight where both fighters were battered and bruised at the end of the fight, and one was crowned the champion. That was the kind of day or game that we had on the books yesterday with Hofstra. And it was very, very cool to see us win that game, because I hope that does what it should do.
Me too. So this week coming up, UMBC tomorrow and Northeastern this weekend.
First things first, let's take care of UMBC, and we'll worry about Northeastern on Friday.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks, Will. We'll be back with you in just a second, but right now, a little word from our sponsor. This segment's brought to you by Towson alum Chris Russ, your real estate specialist. You can find Chris at chrisruss.com or call him at 410-908-7723. Chris specializes and takes great pride in helping others relocate to new towns, as he once did over a dozen times while pursuing his dream to play Major League Baseball with the Texas Rangers. With many buyers flooding the area due to the great schools, strong job economy, and a robust defense industry, Chris has teamed up with lenders that specialize in VA loans and a home inspector that served our military proudly. Whether you are looking to commute to Howard County, Fort Meade, Baltimore, Bethesda, or Washington, D.C., Chris is familiar with the communities and the commuter locations that will serve you best. That's Chris Russ at chrisruss.com, 410-908-7723. Another proud TU alum. That's Chris Russ at chrisruss.com, your real estate specialist. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to start off by saying we're back. Yes, it's been a week off, and Will Pritchard had some things he had to take care of, and obviously schoolwork comes first. Glad to have him back. Hello, Will.
I'm back.
There he is. The man behind the scenes. He gets it done for us, ladies and gentlemen. He gets it done. And of course, we've asked our good friend Michael Melnik to make another appearance here. Today, we're going to be talking about inclusion, the energy source inclusion. And I'll tell you what, it's going to be interesting to hear Michael kind of design this for us, because I subscribe to this one. I believe in it 100%. The more that we can get involved in decision-making from the coaching staff, the better off we are. If we can involve our players in certain things, I think the better off we are. So, Michael, without further ado, how about taking it away and teeing up inclusion for us?
It would be my pleasure. Thanks for having me back. Good to be here. Good to see you. And nice to have the opportunity to speak to your audience. So, inclusion, when I talk about these energy sources, most of them came out of experiences, not always good experiences, but walking away with going, well, why in the world did that not work? Or why was that, received the way that it was? And for the world that I'm in, I'm invited to come in and do presentations for employees on a regular basis. And for quite a while in my career, I would be invited by management to come in. That's who extended the invitation, but that's not who I was presenting to. So I would come walking into a room with 20 or 30 or 50 or 100 people, none of whom invited me to come speak to them. So I've got a room filled with people who are disengaged and their arms are crossed and they're reading a newspaper, they're doing something else, because they didn't get to put their fingerprints on any of what was going on there. And what I found out then moving forward was this really then was applying to everything that I was trying to do with an organization, that as soon as you have somebody, and sometimes you can see it in their face, sometimes they'll say it out loud, are things like, well, whose idea was this? No, but I didn't even know it was coming. Nobody talked to me about it. Nobody asked my opinion. And from an energy source standpoint, you literally can see the energy being sucked out of whatever you were trying to do, if the people that you are inviting to this, whether it be a baseball team or it be an industrial group of employees, we all feel like if we want to be involved, then we want to feel like our fingerprints are on there somewhere. And probably my favorite statement, and I did not make it up, and I saw it somewhere, and I don't remember who said it, but it was, if you want to hear a good idea, have one. And really what that means is that, Matthew, if you said to me, oh, Michael, I got this great idea for this new greatest thing or whatever, by the time you're done explaining it, I would probably look at you and go, Matthew, you know what? That's good, But you know what it's missing? And as soon as I throw in my genius piece, my genius addition, all of a sudden I'm going to not only think it's amazing, but I'm also going to want to participate and be on board. So the more we feel that we are a part of what we are participating in and have been able to contribute to it in some way, the more likely we are to invest our energy.
Sounds good. And I'll tell you, just listening to what you were mentioning earlier about your audiences, same thing. I mean, I've got to figure out my audience, right? And each year my audience changes. So how far do I let these guys go in regard to decision making and things of that nature? And as I have aged into my coaching, I found that I've given our players more and more of a platform to share with me what it is that we do, from like when do we leave and why do we leave at that time, to why do we eat what we eat and where do we eat and what times do we eat, and all of those types of things. And then of course the kicker is curfew. What time should we set curfew? And as I've again aged into the coaching thing, it's like the players police themselves a little bit harder than I probably would, so it's interesting to see. The one thing I'm going to ask you to get into later, I want you to keep describing your inclusion source, but what do you think the what word am I looking for here? If I'm a leader and I'm constantly asking for input, does that make me look weak?
No, that's a good question. And how you do it, I mean, you certainly can be asking for input because you look like you don't know what to do, right? But the
Yes.
other is, because when you think about the energy sources aren't necessarily about what to do. They're a lot of the how to do it, right? It's the packaging of it. So it could be that you might be talking to I'm just going to use an example that's kind of outside of my world, but more in yours. But you could sit there and go, you know what? At a practice, these are the 5 things we have to do. I'm not asking for your input on that, right? You're not telling them I'm not asking for your input. You're just saying, you guys, here are the 5 things we have to do. I'm not married to the order in which we do them. So as we go into a practice or we go into a whatever, and we want to make sure we've nailed these 5 things, share with me your thoughts on, and give me your rationale as to why you think we ought to do it in this order. I'm open to that. So to me, that is really determining as the leader, where is it that I am really not looking for, I don't want them going, yeah, I think we should have to come in at curfew at 3:00 in the morning. Okay, well, I'm not asking you for that, right? I'm going to say, I think between, 10:30 and midnight, give me your rationale as why one versus the other, because in your mind, you're going, I already know where my timeline is, and it's by midnight, they're in. So
Yeah.
It's important that they see you as being in charge and knowing what you're doing, and yet you are open to any influence on it that might actually make it better in the way you do those particular things.
Okay, so now let's back up. Let's go back to that audience that has their arms crossed and they're reading the newspaper and they're, doing anything but getting ready to listen to Michael Melnik. How have you been able to flip the script and get people like that energized and involved and things like that?
Yeah, and that is, and I love that, because they're, without holding up a big sign that says we are going to sit here and resist you this entire time because we had nothing to do with this event and what you're talking about, is I begin looking for immediately where are places where they can start to feel like they've got their fingerprints on something. So moving forward after those kinds of events, I started going into organizations like a day ahead of time, or even if it was just the morning before a presentation, and I would walk around in their facility and I would say, hey, I'm going to be doing that presentation this afternoon. Here are the kinds of things I'm going to be talking about. You've maybe been at different organizations. What have you heard in presentations like this? Or what issues would you like me to cover? And it's quite possible they're going to mention stuff I was already going to cover. But I'm more than happy to let them feel like they've got some ownership in that, because now when I kick off the presentation, I start with, hey, I want to thank you all for helping me put this presentation together. Well, guess what? They feel really silly now resisting the presentation that they helped put together. So So, but I'll give you a real simple one. So I may be starting off the presentation and I haven't had time to, interact with them at all ahead of time. And they're going to be sitting in this room for an hour. And these are people who are being used to up and moving around and whatever. And I'll say, look, I know an hour is a heck of a long time for you all to sit. So I'm happy to let you stand once in a while. You tell me, when should I have you get up? How long do you all want to sit before I have you stand up? And now if they go, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, when that 30 minutes happens, I go, okay, everybody, based on your request, stand on up. Number one, they don't resist it because they requested it. And number two, I got people that are going, thanks for letting us stand. If in the middle of the presentation, knowing that they should be standing, without saying to them, how often should you stand up? If I would have just in the middle of the presentation just said, all right, everybody stand up. They'd have been like, you can't make me. I'm like, right, same behavior that I'm going after, but if their fingerprints are on it to some degree, they're less likely to resist.
It's interesting. We lost a pitching coach this past summer and a volunteer coach, which meant, all right, boom, we've got to hire some people to fill out this coaching staff. And I met with my remaining coach and my direct report, and I said, I really feel like to get this right, I want to involve 3 pitchers from this year's pitching staff. And all of us concluded that was a good idea. And the feedback, and I may have mentioned this earlier in an episode, but the feedback we got from those guys were spot on in regard to the feedback that we had between the 3 of us. And, I shared with them, hey, I'm interested in your feedback. I'd love to see your ranking file. Without a doubt, you guys will have some major input, but ultimately the decision to hire will be in my responsibility. But it went really well, I think. And with those 3 guys champion the hire, it made the transition between new coach, pitching staff much more cohesive, much more sooner. And I couldn't have asked for a better outcome on that particular hire. So
yeah, and I think that's a great story. And it's some of the beauty. If you ask people for their input, you are not saying, and then I will do what you are asking. I mean, you alluded to that in saying I may not pick it, but the ability to go back after and say, you know what, I realize that for 2 of the 3 of you or whatever, this wouldn't have been your choice, but let me tell you how our discussion and your feedback did influence my decision and help me in that process. Because it's not just saying your input by itself is what I'm going to do. It is saying that your input has value, whether I act on it or not. It's influencing my thought process. Because it is not unusual in the world that I'm in for employers to want to do an attitude survey of their employees. And they will do an attitude survey. They'll get the attitude survey back and it's terrible, right? It says, I hate my job, I hate my boss. And so they throw it in the garbage can and they never talk about it. And the employees are sitting there going, well, that's perfect. That's exactly why we scored it the way that we did. You cannot ask people, you should not ask people for their feedback or their contribution if you're not willing to at least go back and share with them why you are not doing what it is that they requested, because otherwise you've slammed the door on feedback at that
absolutely
point.
We've got a coaches convention that meets every January, and I remember listening to Paul Maneri, who is a friend of mine, after he won the national championship. That's considered the coach of the year, so he gets to open the convention, and he was mentioning that same thing. You have to involve. So he was speaking on the subject of inclusion. You have to involve your assistant coaches. You have to reach out and gain some of their knowledge, and then you have to use it. You have to use their knowledge, because if you don't, you'll continue to ask, but they won't give you anything. Because why should I give you anything? Because you're not using it anyway. So sure, go with it.
Well, and think about it. If what you're trying to do is teach as a coach, because you're doing a tremendous amount of that. That if somebody has an idea that does, gets in your brain a little bit and you're tossing it around, you're not going to act on it. And there's 5 reasons why that won't work. If you just don't do it, but you don't go back to this person and then say, let me tell you the debate I had in my own head about your idea and your thought. And here are 5 reasons. They now know why that didn't work, instead of them still wanting to own that idea. And maybe they're going to try to take that to battle someplace else, when they could have been smarter and more insightful if they'd have had, because then they could look at you and go, oh man, I never even thought of those 5 things. Thank you. Because I wouldn't propose that idea to anybody anymore, because it's not a great idea, or it doesn't have all the right pieces, or whatever it might be. So you don't want to miss those teaching opportunities.
Well, and I'll tell you, as I've matured, obviously before Laura passed, we learned how to make conscious decisions together. Yeah. So I'd like to think that we included one another in the decision-making process. Most relationships start out that way. Ours ended that way. So it was a good accomplishment for both of us. And it does, and it changes. Again, we're talking about energy. It changes the energy around everything that you do. If somebody goes, I don't know if this will actually get implemented or not, but I know it will be heard with respect and it will be responded to. And if it's not a good idea, I'll actually end up finding out why it's not. Or they may come back and go, you know what? I didn't go with the majority of this, but 5% of what you said, let me show you where that's actually being applied right now. And I want to thank you. Do not stop contributing ideas for that. But the other, and I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No.
One other thing that I wanted to say about inclusion, which I think with all of the energy sources, you can just put a small tweak on them and they become kind of repositioned and have a little bit of a different meaning. And with inclusion, particularly with baseball and with sports, when you start talking about a team, there is something about being on a team where inclusion is a huge part of that equation. And so my question to you, or my question to anybody that plays on a team, is what does it feel like to be a part of a team, right? Because you can't separate inclusion. I mean, unless you're a free agent and you don't care about the rest of the players, you don't care about the coach, you're just there for yourself, maybe inclusion doesn't have any relevance to you. But for a lot of players, you talk to them years later and they still have those memories of being a part of, the 92 season and that team and whatever it might be. And on a regular basis, what are those experiences that have people feel like they are being included in something that's bigger than themselves? And a process, could be a winning season, could be a losing season, whatever it might be, they're still a part of a story. They're still, and how were they included in those things? And that's just a different slant on inclusion, but particularly when you talk about teams and teamwork and having an impact on other people, or other people having an impact on you, those are things that, like it or not, they have an impact. You are included.
Absolutely, yeah.
But how do you describe that experience of being a part of a team?
Well, we'll check back in on that, because after this big win we had yesterday, I'll ask that tomorrow.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's the nice thing, is you are in a ongoing experiment, right? I mean, you're getting new experiences, new data, people are growing and they're learning, and it's this beautiful environment that you have to test things and to, to see the results and to tweak it and continue to get feedback and modify and grow.
It's quite the petri dish, for sure.
It is quite the petri dish, and you are quite the mad scientist, my friend.
There you go. Thank you very much. I've been called never a mad scientist, so much.
Yeah.
Michael, it's always a pleasure. We're going to wrap now, and we will have you back next week. Looking forward to it, my man. Always a pleasure to see you and talk with you and gain that terrific insight. Thanks for the energy source of inclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure,
Thanks.
Matthew, and congratulations on the victory, my man.
Thanks, sir. Talk to you soon.
You too.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
We'll be back with you in just a second, but right now, a little word from our sponsor. Hey, Will, we picked up another sponsor tonight.
All right, who is it?
Advanced Collision in Beltsville, Maryland, serving cars, buses, fleets, RV, recreational vehicles, and emergency vehicles. They upfit in the Washington, D.C. and the Baltimore areas. Advanced Collision LLC excels at providing paint, dent repair, and auto body work services for your automobile. They use the best products available today for your automobile, and they only use certified, skilled, highly trained technicians backed by state-of-the-art equipment on your repair. And for a couple months, the Jungle Cat and his family kept those techs in business. They offer custom paint and design, professional body work, and repair services for all types of cars, trucks, buses, and recreational vehicles. So if you have a vehicle that needs repaired, do what the Jungle Cat does. Call 301-595-9377 to schedule an appointment. Advanced Collision, your best bet when it comes to automotive repair. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got a special guest for tonight's episode. And I'm going to preface it by saying this. We don't have any other guests. This is the guy. He was instrumental when I moved to Towson. He was a Towson alum. He was a Towson coach of more than one sport. And then if you matriculated through the academic side of Towson University and you were an athlete, more than likely you worked with him in regard to or regarding your completion of a degree here. So multifaceted, multi-talented, jack of all trades, married, father of two, just an unbelievable, great guy. Alumni of the Year, which we still haven't been able to give him his award because of COVID and then his new schedule. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to our show, Towson grad, Eric Franc. How are you, Eric?
I'm doing well. First off, thank you. It's a jack of all trades is right, but you know what they say with the rest of that thing, man. Sometimes it's a master of none, I feel like. But things are going well. I'm doing well, and season's getting me. I've learned a lot in a short time. I learned a lot over, I feel like you said, all the jobs I've had, and as you start to put it together and realize that, wait a second, I'm older than the head coach I work for now. I'm the old guy around. I'm the guy that's done a bunch of things and seen a bunch of things, and start to learn that now it's really time to pass it on to some other people too. But you know as well as I do, man, there's always time to learn more and go through and continue to pick up as you go. But that's what I'm still doing.
Absolutely.
Every day you go through, if you're not learning, you're getting passed by.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're not going to jump into present time without going back into your past. So we're going to start it off real quick. Just give those that are meeting you for the first time a little background. You're a Baltimore boy, right?
A little bit south, St. Mary's County, man. Down southern Maryland. My wife is from North Jersey, so she's like, what town are you from? So we don't have towns. It's St. Mary's County in southern Maryland.
There it is.
So if you're from down there, that's the way it goes. But Maryland, all the way through for the most part, with the exception of the years I've been in Ohio.
Okay, so work with me, man. Take me from high school to college. How did that happen?
All right, down in the county, played Legion. That's all we had. Because I'm 40 now, so I'm up there. We had Legion. I played St. Mary's American Legion and wanted to stay in state. I was the guy that was like, hey, my girlfriend still in high school. I'm going to stay in state. And probably limited my options in terms of playing and stuff like that. And said, I'm going to come up to Towson and see how it goes. And hurt my shoulder. Tried to rehab after my freshman year and played Legion again that summer because, again, it's kind of where we were. I was in the age bracket where you could play another year. Nothing got better, and that was pretty much it. So, loved school, loved the Towson area. Both my parents went there. It wasn't really the reason why I went, but I wanted a bigger place that, again, being from down in southern Maryland, it was 45 minutes to the mall. If you ever wanted to go to the mall, you had to get in the car and drive an hour, So it was in the city, but not in the city, close to some other places. And like I said, it was a program that I thought I could be involved in before getting hurt, and just loved being there anyway. I mean, I probably could have gone back to St. Mary's College, or my brother went to Frostburg, D3 at the time, and probably played with the way my arm was, but just loved where I was at. And so I stayed. Realized that I didn't want a job that I would sit at the desk all day, and didn't care about making money, so I was going to teach PE through the K-12, and coach high school. So when I was out, I started coaching American Legion back home in the summers. 2 years at St. Mary's, 1 year at Cheney Enterprises, which was up in Waldorf and is no longer Legion anymore. And it kind of got to where, I think I want to try to move up a level, work to college level, and do that kind of stuff. And started sending stuff everywhere, man. And happened to be that one of the schools I sent to was Lake Erie College in Cleveland, just outside of Cleveland. And they had a new athletic director, Ken Krasalovic, who came from St. Joe's, was assistant baseball coach at St. Joe's. He became the AD and the head baseball coach, and he walked into his desk at this Lake Erie College, and there's my resume portfolio thing sitting there. And he calls me, he's visiting back in Philadelphia, so I want to meet you. I drive up to meet with him. It's a weird story. I met with him at Dunkin' Donuts. So I know you and I have a weird story. It's kind of how we met and went a little bit and looked at Hall. But Ken and I had a weird story too. Met him in Dunkin' Donuts, him and his kid, munching on some donuts, talking about baseball with me. And it kind of started as, hey, looks like you know how to use the computer real well. And that's kind of how it started. I got my GA spot. But at a small D3 where it was him and I, so it was real hands-on, real right in. Did that for 3 years, 2 years as a graduate assistant. I took a job in my last year, I took a job in admissions there so I could stay and coach, and ended up being a little different environment, trying to work full-time and coach through the program as well, and ended up coming back to the East Coast, back to Towson. And like you said, that's where the multi-sport area came in, man.
Yeah.
I'd known Coach Matthews already from my time at Towson. And so I called him one day back at Lake Erie. He's like, yeah, Joe, it's got a little rough here, man. I'm making not a lot of money to work this job at admissions at a small school. And baseball, I wasn't allowed to go to every game because I had to work my job at admissions at a D3. It was only 40. It's still 40 now. And so he's like, hey, we just got this ops spot. Come back to the East Coast, work in ops for me, women's basketball. It's like a 1 year thing, man. You can get back to the East Coast, get to D1, you can go back to coaching baseball. And I did that job for 5 years. So you never know how things are going to work out, but I learned a lot.
Sure.
And we were relatively successful, man, preseason WNIT. Not like Coach Richardson and them are now. They really got it done this year, too. But we were kind of the ones before that. 22 wins, 17 wins, 22 wins. And then I was like, man, I've done this for 5. It's become alive. It's not really my passion. I did it because I enjoyed the people I worked with. And, again, back at Towson, back to home. Got back to the baseball side. 2009-10, I believe. It's so long ago now. I feel like I went over to Coppin. I would work for Joe during the day when Towson Women's basketball, and at 2 p.m. drive over to Coppin State University and coach baseball over there all spring. And that year was a rough one. 14 wins, but the year prior they were 0-29, so I guess we had some success, if you want to put it in perspective that way. And then I was out on the road that summer, and Coach Roan, who was the assistant at Towson at the time, was like, saw him at Mount St. Mary's. We were recruiting, and he's like, why are you going to Coppin? We have an open volley spot right now. I was like, really? I didn't know. Talked to Coach Gottlieb, and he had me on, and then it was 10 years, man. 10 years through a lot of changes. 2013 with potential cut, 2017 with the changeover, and you graciously accepted me in and taught me a whole nother world of stuff, and now it's just kind of moved on from there. So a lot of stuff, a lot of time. And they said I'm the old one, man.
Hey, when did you start with the academic side here at Towson?
That was right the year after I was at Coppin, so it had to be about 10, 11, fall of 10, I think. And with basketball, it had sort of turned into, as we got better athletically on the women's basketball side, we took on some players that had some other baggage, I guess, So a part of my job became at that time, before we had as large an academic staff, as there is at Towson currently, was kind of like, hey, I had to keep track of my kids on the women's basketball program, and sit and work with them. Hey, we have this due tomorrow, the organization, all that kind of stuff that's on the academic thing. So Towson at the time was looking for someone to work football or another area. So Bobby Madison, the director at the time, said, hey, I'd like you to come do the football thing. And I was like, Bobby, no offense. I've been doing it with women's basketball now for the last year, basically. It's a lot of pressure there. I can't imagine the level of pressure on dealing with football and eligibility and academics. And she was like, well, I'm going to move Jeff Gordon, who's obviously still there, as our assistant AD, over into this spot. And so baseball, it was baseball, women's soccer, and 2 other sports are going to be open. Would you be interested? And I said, sure, I'll be interested. Would I be able to continue to coach? And she's like, as long as you get your job done, you can go to practice, you can go to games, and sweet, I'm in. So that started the academic side of it. And again, that was probably about 2010, 2011. So it was a lot of stuff happening at once. A lot of stuff. As you said, 2 kids. My oldest was born in 2010 as well. So all kinds of stuff going. But in all honesty, it was really that I loved being there at Towson. I liked working with the students, but Bobby really gave me the opportunity to continue to coach and do what I loved, as long as I was able to get done the academic piece. And I did, and it grew on me a lot. But really, it was, hey, if I'm out here getting to do it, then I'm going to work hard on that side so I can get to do the fun part, which is the baseball side. You know, sometimes it's what the kids don't realize. Got to go to class, you're going to play, right? So I guess it was the same way for me for a long time, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like somehow, some way, you just absolutely filled your plate up with Towson. How did you get married in there?
Well, that was kind of a big thing because my wife and I met at Towson. And we actually had a class together freshman year and didn't know it. Bio, back in the day, it was Bio 110. Now it's Bio 190. And I know that stuff's still from my academic side. You know, I remember all those class numbers and everything. And then we met the next year, sophomore year. So met and obviously talked for a while. She went home to New Jersey when I went out to Lake Erie in my GA spot, and she worked from home, and we were still together. Said we couldn't get married, tried a real job, you know. So I graduated with my master's and said, hey, I'm taking this job in admissions over here. It's a real job. Let's get married. So, but between the time we got engaged and the time we were supposed to get married was when I ended up back on the East Coast, back at Towson again. So she had known, obviously, the area and was more than happy to come back down. But that's kind of where it starts. So like you said, immersed in Towson, I guess, man. You know, immersed in Towson. A lot of things started at that place.
Yes, it did for you, for sure. I mean, you got your career up and running. You found your wife. Now you have 2 beautiful children. Talk to me a little bit about them.
Oh, they're out of control right now. I mean, Bradley is 11, Luke is 5. Luke's starting into real ball now, basically out of the T-ball realm, and Bradley's was played in a league here this fall, developmental league, but it was 11 to 14. And so, I mean, he was outdone. There's kids, freshmen in high school, you know?
Yeah.
Coming in there, and it's like, dude, these guys are going to kill somebody. And so for him, it was very, very eye-opening in the sense of, I guess you think of it like we are, you know, in college. You get a college freshman come in, and they run the place in high school and hit everything, and now you're playing guys, especially now in COVID years, that I have a 60-year guy in my program right now. I got 2 50-year guys that were NCAA All-Region guys last year, D3. And you put them up against an 18-year-old. That was Bradley this fall with some of these older kids. And I'm like, look, man, stick it out. You're going to get better. It's going to make you better. It's going to be tough. It's going to make you better. And to be 1,000% honest, I think he made contact once, T. Wow. He fouled a ball off. And I was about the happiest person in the world when he fouled that ball off, man.
Well, I'm sure he
was. I think we haven't made contact yet, but we got a piece of that one, and they were gunning. Wow. So it's been good with them. It's slower pace around here, out in Ohio, you know, and I think for them as kids, it kind of reminds me back of St. Mary's County. As a kid in St. Mary's County and a teenager, like I said, I wanted to go somewhere the city was, and that's how I ended up at Towson. And now as an adult with 2 kids, it's like, you know, the slower thing kind of works with them. You know, kind of works with them. But I can guarantee they're going to be the same way I am as they continue to grow up. So my mom says that's punishment for the way I was, you know?
Absolutely. So let me bring everybody up to date. So for those of you that don't know the timeline here with Eric and me, we joined forces in 2017 in the summer. And the way it happened was I was actually meeting Jeff Gordon on campus in his office. And of course, I had my wife with me, and it was my day of final interviews, so everybody had to either thumb up me or not. And when Laura and I got back into the car, she had spent the same amount of time with Eric that I spent with Jeff Gordon. And she said, I don't care whatever you do, you know, if you get this job, you can hire whoever you want to, but you need to retain Eric Franc. And I was like, Laura, you don't know the first thing about baseball coaching at all. She goes, no, but I know people And she goes, that young man will be an asset to your staff. Trust me on this one. So I heeded the warning, and a couple days later, I asked him to be a part of the staff, and we spent 4 years together with Eric leading the charge of player development. I mean, he took us into software programs that we had never been a part of. He took us into video review that we had never been a part of. He went to his first coaching convention and just, really was a late bloomer in his coaching career. And as luck would have it, he wanted to really position himself to get back on the field, and he got a golden opportunity at Heidelberg out in Northwest Ohio a little over a year and a half, about a year ago, right? Year and a half?
Yep.
And so he took the opportunity and has never looked back. He's the recruiting coordinator and assistant coach at Heidelberg College, a Division III powerhouse in Ohio. So that's how he got there. Talk to us a little bit about your program out there, big guy.
Oh man, I wish powerhouse was still the word, but we're a little down at the moment. Last year I came in to a team that was ranked 22nd when I came in, and a team that was in the College World Series in 2019. The last time there was a College World Series, because obviously 20 was shut down, and man, we started 8 of 9 guys that were on that same team, and things were looking good. And the OAC, which is a top 3 D3 conference in the country, now we hold the number 1 team, Marietta, and Baldwin Wallace, who Coach Harrison at Baldwin Wallace T.
Yeah.
They were up to 8, and I'm proud to say I love Coach Harrison, but I'm proud to say we beat them when they were 8th, and we split a doubleheader with them. Probably should have gotten both from them, but so now they're 13th. So the OAC is extremely competitive, and what they did to last year, the OAC said, look, you can play all 40 games, but you're only allowed to play conference opponents, and you're only allowed to play on the weekend. So 10 conference teams, 40 games. We played doubleheader Saturday, doubleheader Sunday, every weekend. And in a conference that is as difficult to get through as it is, we started off 3-1 and quickly fell to 10-10. And you're not going to be ranked very long in that. Ended 24-16, conference tournament, made it to the conference semifinals, lost in that game 5-4. Marietta goes on to win the conference, and we graduated a good number of those guys. So this year is a partial rebuild on our end. We do still have some 5th years left. We have, like I said, 1 6-year Army is our number 1 pitcher. And it's been a little bit of an up and down battle as well with that, as now we're getting back to a schedule they haven't played since 2019 again, where you play non-conference midweeks and conference on the weekend, stuff like that. And we're a little down. My goal was to come in and say, okay, who are we? What have we been successful at? And where can I help make an adjustment to continue to get us better? And you know me, I'm a numbers guy. So last year, as I looked at our stuff as we went through 21, I was like, man, we hit for some power. We do a lot of good things, but we're striking out 25% of the time. Easily leading the conference, easily. Where Marietta, the number 1 team in our conference, was like 16%. And I'm like, okay, so this fall, on the hitting side of things, we're going to make some adjustments to cut back that number, to get some more balls in play. More balls in play, more base runners on, figured it all out. Hey, if we struck out league average, it was 64 less strikeouts off of last year's numbers. We hit 309 as a team. That's 19 more hits. We scored a run every 1.38 hits. That's 7 more runs. And in 21, we lost 6 games by 2 runs or less. So 7 more runs spread out, man, we're great, right? Well, you've been doing this long enough, T, to know that, hey, the numbers don't always tell the whole story, man. So this year, we have cut down strikeouts already with 6 or 7 games remaining. We've hit as many home runs as last year, yet we're hitting 266. And we have lost already more games than last year. So as much as you wish and try and work on certain things, you always got to be ready to make an adjustment. So we've been eliminated from the OC already. Only 4 teams are going this year, and we can't get back up. So we have 2 weeks to run some guys through and see where we're going to be for next year. We have a recruiting class of 18 coming in for next fall, which is bigger than we wanted to go, but we actually got picked by a couple guys that we weren't expecting it. We're like, man, if we could get this guy, it's going to be big for us. And they came back and said, I'm going to come there. So that's a good sign. But again, my job is to say, hey, this is who we've been, extremely successful as a program. What can we do to remain that way? And not just remain, but, again, always work to get better. So what are we lacking now? Why did we take this little step back now? How do we continue to move back forward next year? And like I said, through my younger days as the volunteer at Towson, it was a lot of, hold on a second. Hey, it was a lot of the player side. When you're a younger coach, the players will come to you and more so, and they'll tell you stories, and you work with them on the personal side of things, and they get to know you real well. And then as player development, it was a lot of the technical side. And now, again, I'm the old guy on staff. I'm 40. I'm older than our head coach. And you start to think of decisions a different way about, hey, man, this guy might not be the best fit within our program, but he loves the school and we're a small institution. So how can we keep him happy at this institution so he remains here? Or this guy's time isn't now. So instead of putting him through the same workouts as these older guys, let's give them a different set because I need to develop them. He's not going to see a live at bat this year. But how can I keep him moving forward? It's a lot of stuff that I never had to work through previously, that I know you're used to and people in different roles are used to. And you just become accustomed now to new ways of seeing. Like I said, it's always learning. It's always learning. So as I've gotten through, and we have a new GA now, a guy that actually played at Heidelberg, graduated at 18, and he's a younger guy. So he comes in with that fire I used to have. We got to sub this guy. We got to get this guy out. We're down in Florida playing our spring trip, and our one player struggled a little bit. I can't watch it. We got to get him out. I'm like, whoa, time out, man. Time out. We need him the rest of this year. And the last thing I want to do is put the pressure on him that if he makes one little mistake or strikes out once, I'm going to yank him out, right? So let's give him a moment. It's okay. Breathe. And he goes and hits 2 doubles the rest of the day. But I remember being that guy too, when you get into it, you're like, we got to change this. We got to change this. So maturity, I guess, and learning. And again, it's
hear you,
different,
man.
man.
Well,
it's different.
Listen to you. You're just maturing right in front of me. It's
I know.
scary thought, man.
Maturing and getting gray hair, man. That's all I know. Maturing and getting gray hair.
All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot. Ready?
Yes, sir.
You've been in and around the Towson University arena for 20 years. Who was your best baseball player you ever laid eyes on when you were coaching here at Towson?
That I was with, and I started with him totally. He got up to AAA and the Red Sox system. Parker, who was the catcher, all-conference guy that played in the Braves system a little bit. And Brady, who's still playing with the Mud Hens right now. I went and saw him and Richie play against each other last year, the Mud Hens and the Clippers. I love them all. I love all the guys that even didn't get anywhere that come back and text me now, say, hey, thanks. And you see them, Colin Dyers and Chris Ackers and guys like that. But I think Richie was probably the best. Richie had multiple skill sets. And you coached Richie, and you helped Richie in the sense of, like I'm trying to do here at Heidelberg, where are we lacking a little bit, right?
Right.
And Richie had a great skill set when he came in, but was lacking a little bit in where he was hitting balls, right?
Right.
And he was sort of one-dimensional. And you got him, that was our first year, right?
Right.
And opened him up a little more to, hey, man, you could hit powerfully this way, and you can also hit powerfully that way. And I remember him going 365 to left center. And I'll always remember him going 500 feet down the right field line against Hofstra to win the game, right?
Absolutely.
And it's not even so much his skill set, but even from the beginning, Richie would take others with him.
Yeah.
He would take Noah Cabrera and Alex Claus and some other guys over to what then at the time we had as the cage, right, which was the racquetball court.
Right.
Before we upgraded, and go in and do some work. And if he wasn't his best, he was still bringing others with him. And he had an energy and a love for it that I text him now, talk to him now, and text him the other day when Bradley got the show. And he's like, oh, Richie's finally in the show. And it has like a fake picture of him. I texted Richie and said, man, they did you wrong. That does not look like you. And he's like, I know. I said, but you're going to prove to him what you look like here pretty soon, man. He just has that energy about him. And that's what you need. Even if a guy's a bad day, if he can bring something to your program and make your program a little bit better on that day, just through energy, attitude, effort, even if he's 0 for 4 or makes an error, it helps everyone around. And I'm not saying that other people we had didn't. There was just some kind of spark in him that was like, you know, if he doesn't get a hit his first 2 times, he's going to butt and get on the 3rd time. He's going to find a way to get on that next time, and it's going to start something for you. And I think it had to be him. I was a little bit after Casper, and I know Casper had a great career. And I met Casper because Casper came back and finished his degree. You know, so I never got to see him play for us, though. And a lot of those other guys were very good at what they did. But I think overall, with the set of skills, the athleticism, Richie, I think, had more pieces together and knew his flaws. You know, he knew he didn't have the greatest arm, so he worked his footwork and his hands to be quick enough to get it across the field from short, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as a freshman, we had to move him over to second. That was when Brady was still there. And Brady was obviously drafted as a catcher with Detroit, but Brady was our shortstop Richie's freshman year because we're down at Wake Forest the first weekend in their tournament, and we have Richie at short. And he knew his weaknesses, so his feet would move so fast, his hands would move so fast that he didn't have to have the power arm from the 6th hole. He could get to the ball and come through it, but he was just trying to go too fast. So he'd bobble the ball, or he'd kick it. So we moved him over to second to slow him down and brought Brady in. And Brady did a great job for us. Hit everything that year, you know, but what he did was allowed Richie to learn and slow the game down. And a guy, like I said, like Richie was able to say, hey, look, here's who I want to be. I'm not there. How can I get help? And he did with us then, and he did with you when you came in, right?
Yeah.
In the sense of, here's who I want to be. And he's still doing that now, I believe, right? Here's
Absolutely.
who I want to be. I'm not there. I made it to this level? Great. I'm all conference A? Great. I got drafted? Great. I hit great in single A, double A? Great. I'm not where I want to be, and I'm not ready to stop. And as I'm going through, since, when did I start at Lake Erie? 2004, with 2 or 3 years off in between before I went back at Compton. I haven't found a lot of guys that it's like it burns like that, you know? They all want to be good. They all want to play. But to stop and listen and say, okay, I'm not taking this personally. I need to know how I do get better. How do I work on this? How do I work on that? He's just a sponge in that regard. And then he's willing to go do it over and over and over to get it the right way. That's why I think for me, it was really him.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's speaking of Richie Palacios, who is a one-of-a-kind talent. And, Eric, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but Richie was called up, and he is starting in left field tonight for the Guardians against the Angels.
I wish I did, because I keep telling myself, as soon as that happens, I'm driving my butt to Cleveland. You know, so are they home? Don't tell me they're away or something.
They're away. It's out in L.A., and we are all
I don't feel as bad then.
No, we're all super excited. I know Coach Gottlieb has got to be excited as well. He's just.
And I know. I mean, the first I remember it to this day. Now it's no longer the Berkshire Marriott over there, but Richie came on his visit. Coach Gottlieb saw him up in New York at first, I think, possibly.
Yep, exactly.
And came on his visit, and instead of meeting him in the office, I met him and his family in the lobby of the Berkshire Marriott. Because they came in that night before and had dinner and got up that morning and really had to get back out of there. And Coach Gottlieb said, hey, can you come over here and meet him over here? And I met him in the lobby of the Berkshire Marriott. And I remember that always. So I was going to be like, when he gets called up, which now it's happening, I was going to try to head to Cleveland, take a picture with him there and be like, hey, I remember, man, from here to here, you know? It's crazy. It's crazy how things work. And I know he won't stop now. His goal is not to get called up. His goal is not to start a game or get a hit. His goal is he's Hall of Fame. That's what he thinks.
I know, and somehow, some way, I'm gonna have to find that Angel game on some network tonight. So, wish us all luck. All right, I got one more question for you, then I'm gonna let you go.
Sir.
All right, you ready?
Gotcha.
You've repeated, the fact that you're 40 years old more than once today. So I think we all know your age. You're a smart man. What would you have told, or what would you tell 21-year-old Eric Franc today that would better prepare him for the rest of his life?
Well, you want the real answer, the joke answer, because as the head coach, Coach Fitzgerald, that I work with now, he's, like I said, he's 38, and he has 2 young children. His oldest is just under 2, and his youngest is obviously under 1. I'm like, man, Fitz, you did it the right way, man. You got the job first. You made it up the ladder first. You put in the time, and now you have the kids. So that's my running joke, is that, man, I did it backwards. The family thing first, and now here I am, D3 assistant, Tiffin, Ohio, which is a great place, but extremely small, right? So that's my joke, is, man, do it the other way. But in honesty, the truthful answer is probably, I don't want to say in a bad way, probably slow down. So like I said, is now I work with a new graduate assistant and kind of realize that you're experienced in certain ways. I may be experienced in certain ways, but a lot of times I don't feel like that. I look at myself as still young in this, because like you said, I started a little bit later, and there's always still more to learn. So as I watch what he does sometimes, and I'm like, patience. This isn't going to happen right now with this player. It's not going to happen right now with this one. We will swing at a bad pitch and at bat. The question is, do we continue to swing at that bad pitch in the next at bat and the next at bat? So as you're a younger coach and really getting involved in things, you want it to happen very, very quickly to kind of prove that you know what you're talking about and to make things work and to know it's going right. It's just not the way it goes. It is a process. Everything's a process in life, and the game especially is a process. And when things start working right, they start working right, and they can quickly turn. Slumps come. And when the guy's not feeling good, it can turn very quickly. So I really think the best advice I can give myself is just slow down. It doesn't always happen in a second. It doesn't always happen in a day. It might be a year or 2 with a kid. It might be more than that, but sometimes that light will come on, and they'll come back to you, and you'll see it happen. And I feel like that makes me sound really old to say things like that, but
it does.
as you
Trust
get
me.
through, they come, and you can see the light kind of come on sometimes. And you're like, that worked. Or like I said, some of the Towson guys contact you and come back to you, and you see the light come on. The academic side, you see some guys that, not saying in a bad way, you're like, man, I don't know how this kid's going to get out of here. And they get it done. And they figure it out, and they learn, and they grow. And I have a freshman now that could be a good left-handed pitcher for us. He could play first base for us at sometimes, too. And he's throwing the other day and strikes out 3 in an inning against a 19-9 team. And sitting next to me as we're starting to hit, and I'm like, whoa. There's 2 outs. Are you ready to get back on the mound? Yeah, coach, I'm ready. I'm better when I'm relaxed. I'm like, whoa, are you sure? I'm good. He goes up there, hits the next 2 kids. First 2 kids he sees the next inning. And we have to pull him back out. So slow down. It takes time for them to mature. It takes time for them to understand what you're trying to do. It takes time for them to see that it's going to work. And as a young coach, I think you miss that a lot. You miss the process of it. You want the result, right? You want the hits. You want the wins. You want the batting average. You want all that stuff that comes with it. And a lot of times, man, it's the journey, right? It's the trip that gets you there, that helps you realize these things. And I made a trip, and who knows where I end up after this, And I made a trip, and there's still more trip to go. But I picked up a lot from everyone I've been with. Yourself, Coach Gottlieb, Coach Kalinos at Coppin, Coach Kasalovic, Coach Matthews with basketball, right? Not even a sport that I knew anything about hardly. Coach Morgan Valley, who's the assistant at UConn now, women's basketball head coach with the Towson. I texted her all through the Final Four, hoping she would win a championship, right? You learn things as you go. And if you don't take time to slow down and realize it and see it and understand it, it hits you a little bit too late sometimes, Mm-hmm. And that's tough as a young guy, especially as a young guy that was an athlete that's like, hey, I know this, I got this, it's under control. You think it's under control, but who has the control, right? Who really is in control of everything? Big
G.
There you go. Take it for what it's worth, man. Some things happen, some things don't. Some things take longer. You can't force it. You just got to be the best you can and try to make others around you the best you can. And the only other thing, and I'll make this one quick, is I was really throughout a lot as I really start to see it now again here in the last year. That's like, we're bad at this. Right now, we don't hit well with runners in scoring position. Right now, our program, we cannot press the right button and get a kid out of the pen. This guy's been really good for us. Just put him back out there, and he's not real good. Or this starter's been great. It's his turn to start. He wasn't real good. Like, we just can't do it. And so now it's like, well, why? Well, maybe we're not getting them prepared right. Maybe the way we're working isn't helping us hit under pressure situations, run a scoring position. So I've really tried to go from not complaining, you know what I mean, but pointing out our flaws and saying, okay, this is our flaw, but what's the solution? What's the way in which we can help better that? And I feel like when you're younger, you really run to that, like, hey, we're not good at this. Okay, well, we can talk about not being good at it all we want. We need to find an answer. And that goes back to what I started with. Just slow down. Take a second. Don't complain that this isn't working, that isn't working. Okay, it might not be, but how do we fix it? That's the only way you can move forward, man. Gotta go straight through it.
Absolutely, man. I can't remember who told it to me, but it was somebody that I was in the real world with, and he said, dude, don't come to me with a problem unless you've got the solution.
Right, exactly.
Because I don't need another problem. And I was like, and there you go. Well, Eric, I'll tell you what, man. As always, you energize me, you excite me, you make me happy that I've gotten the opportunity to know you. I miss you a bunch. Continued success with you in Heidelberg, and of course your lovely family. Let's do this again. I hope to have you back for the first pitch in January. We'll figure out a way to make that happen. But great talking
and again,
to you.
You also, thank you as well. I mean, you took a chance, as we've said before, on someone that, I have to be 1,000% honest here, that we were 500 or under a lot, before you came in too. And it was like, hey, could I be? Yes, I probably was part of that in that regard. And say, you know what? I'm going to take a chance here. And I appreciate that a lot, and that's kind of how I'm modeling myself in working with some of my players now. That, this guy might have a flaw in this, but if we work on this and this, we can take a chance. This could work out. So I miss you as well. I love talking to you as well, man. Like I said, you bring the energy all the time, too, and I know you still are there. I saw that one against Hofstra this weekend. I saw the close ones at UNCW and just waiting for it to keep over the top. And now you got Northeastern. I don't like them. I don't like anybody in the CAA. We're used to that, though. So go get them, man. Go get them and continue this thing strong.
Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Franc. Thanks, buddy. Be good.
Thank you, T. Have a good one, man.
You too. Bye-bye. We'll be back with you in just a second, but right now, a little word from our sponsor. Hey, well, it looks like we've got a new sponsor, and the Jungle Cat would like to thank the fine team at Capital Seaboard, the top distributor of fresh produce and seafood in the Mid-Atlantic region. Capital services the top chefs in restaurants, hotels, caterers, and kitchens from Philly to Richmond. They're a chef-driven, highest-in-quality company, proudly serving the region with over 90 vehicles delivering 6 days a week. And thanks very much for that sample of lump crab meat. Can't wait to dive into that after tonight's show. What do you think, Will? You ready to try some?
I'm ready.
Great. Well, thanks again to the people at Capital Seaboard for their fine and continued sponsorship. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that does it for tonight's show. What do you think, Will?
I think that went really, really well.
Well, I do too. And what a pleasure to have Coach Franc spend that much time with us. I hope you guys enjoyed it. He is just a super, super human being. You know it. Also want to thank our sponsors, Capital Seafood, Chris Russ, the real estate specialist, and Advanced Collision for keeping us on the air. Thanks very much for all that you guys do. And I'm going to leave you with a parting shot. I know I always talk about be the change you want to see, but I found the card that my wife had used to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year way back in 2013. And her wish was this: today is a new day, embrace kindness, practice compassion, offer hope, work for the common good, love well, and most of all, be the change you want to see in the world. I don't know if she authored that, if she found it, who knows? But it is one of the most compelling sayings I've ever heard. I hope you have a beautiful week. Make it special. Remember, be good, do good. And that's a Charlie Fisher trait. Charlie Fisher trait. Sorry about that. Big tongue, big tongue. Y'all be good. Have a good week. We're out of here.
Do you have any questions you wish for us to discuss? Anything you want to talk about? Feel free to email us
at mtyner@towson.edu. That's mtyner@towson.edu, or wprich1@students.towson.edu. That's WPRICH1@students.towson.edu.